This is A New Angle, a show about cool people doing awesome things in and around Montana. I'm your host, Justin Angle. This show is supported by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Hey folks, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today I'm speaking with Paul Reichert, Executive Director of Prospera, a nonprofit organization working to advance and inspire diverse economies and resilient communities in Southwest Montana.
You know, Montanans really like doing business face to face, and I'm a huge believer in that. It's great to be nearby, but there's nothing like actually going and meeting someone where they are.
This summer marks Paul's 10th year leading Prospera, and the organization is also celebrating its 40th anniversary. Paul, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Justin.
So tell us, where did you grow up and what did your parents do?
I grew up in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. My dad worked at a local business that was making medical products of all things. And he was of that person of that era. He worked for the same company for 35 years and retired.
And how did you make your way to Montana?
The short version is my family moved to Massachusetts when I was probably in grade school, and I started my college career in Orono, Maine, of all places. And at that time period, I was sort of needed a break, and I ended up coming out west with some friends to go skiing. It was a wonderful time, but wanted to finish my education, and I landed in Bozeman and finished my degree here at MSU and fell in love with the place like a lot of people do, and have been living and working in Montana ever since.
And so you've had a long career in economic development. What is economic development and why is it important?
I think of it as kind of tied to community development. So there's business development work, there's community development work. They're slightly different, but oftentimes business development is really about helping people, right? Like businesses are started and run and grow and by people, and so it's very people oriented and people centric on helping people just navigate starting, running, growing, selling a business. And so business development, economic development, if you will, is really about helping people oftentimes. And that's a big part of what we do here at Prospera. The community development side, it's rarely about an individual. It's more about sort of how you help a community get the assets or the resources they need to grow or just strengthen, whether that's, infrastructure related or solving some problem that's a little bit bigger scale. I guess it's not about an individual. It's problem solving on a slightly different scale. The easiest way to think about it usually is infrastructure. Infrastructure these days is a pretty broad term, right? We need social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and if you're gonna have businesses function, and if you're gonna have good jobs and things that the economy really needs, the community has to have the resources and the capacity to sustain it, grow it, maintain it. So those two things are very interrelated. And what drew me to this work was you really can't have one without the other.
Let's talk more about that entry point into this line of work. What attracted you, and why have you decided to stay in the field for so long?
I got involved in growth management in probably the mid 1990s, when Montana was really going through a big growth phase, some really large infrastructure projects around transportation, think Highway 93. And there were some other communities that had very large transportation projects being proposed, and they were pretty controversial at the time. I was working on those issues and topics, working with people around the state, around livable communities, and I got sort of pulled into growth and community development issues that were affecting a lot of different cities at the time, from central Montana and Billings all the way to western Montana, that were really challenged by how do we grow well or how do we have some growth and change, but have it on terms that we can accept or like. And I got pulled into community development issues, quite honestly, at the time. And it was a time when I saw there was a movement for open space. For those that can remember that time period, there was a lot of communities were starting to think about how do we protect open space. There were communities talking about how do we design roads and highways so that they're more livable in terms of how they're engineered and designed. There were communities struggling with just growth at that time period. And I got involved in that work and really loved it and shifted to downtown redevelopment. That really got me introduced to sort of how do you grow communities well? How do you design things in a way that can stimulate a good economy, but have a very livable community at the same time? And so that's kind of what pulled me into this line of work.
Let's talk about Prospera. What is it and why does it exist?
Prospera is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. So Prospera has been around a long time as an organization. Started here in Bozeman, Montana in 1985. At the time, the economy was really stagnant. And so there was a group of business leaders here that started the organization, really just to help the economy of Southwest Montana grow at the time. Our work is really about helping people in business and people in communities find a way to success. And we do that by being a navigator and a problem solver and a catalyst for a stronger Montana economy. Our work sort of lands in 4 buckets. We do free confidential business advising and business counseling to anyone who needs it. So we meet with people that are either starting, running, growing a business and try to help them just navigate whatever they need. So it's very personalized one-on-one service. We provide access to capital. So we help businesses either get loan financing or business development funding to do projects that they need. We do a lot of professional trainings for businesses. We do peer networking, so we connect business people together in sort of meaningful peer relationships and networks. And we work on some community development issues. So that's usually with like either a local government or maybe a local organization that's working on more of a community thing. So our work is very diverse, but it's very, very fun. It's changes all the time. And Prospera has really grown sort of commensurate with the community that we serve here in Southwest Montana.
And is there sort of a prototypical type of budding entrepreneur or small business or maybe even a large business that you and your colleagues serve?
Most of our businesses I would be classified as small businesses. Most of the businesses in our area, so a very high percentage, over 90%, have 20 or fewer employees.
Yeah.
We do work with some bigger businesses that have more employees than that, but I'd say day to day, most of our work is relatively small businesses in the area. We're seeing the economy change a little bit. So there's more and more service oriented type businesses here. Obviously, there's a growing tech community in Bozeman around photonics and other types of tech oriented businesses. So that's going on in our region.
For folks coming in to sort of consume your services or get help, are there some themes that you see across the types of organizations you work with, certain inflection points or stumbling points where businesses need an organization like Prospera to help?
Sometimes it's a referral, right? As someone who's somewhat more sophisticated business owner, they don't necessarily need like business counseling or business advising. They might just need a referral. Who should I talk to about this thing? Do you have any suggestions on who might be good at this or that? If it's professionals like accounting, legal, we certainly do referrals that way. So sometimes it's just connecting people. Other times, I'd say a lot of business owners need help with just understanding their financial picture, getting a good handle on how they determine whether it's profitability or just how they get good at understanding the financial aspect of their business. It's a really common theme. Marketing communications always is a consistent theme because that field is changing so fast.
Right.
Obviously, AI right now is something that's got a lot of people's attention as to like, what should I do about it? How do I incorporate it into my work or my business, or should I at all? So it's always changing. Most of our businesses are relatively entrepreneurial oriented, relatively small, and some are absolutely. We have businesses here that are selling products or services out of state, so they're really bringing new money into the community, and that's a positive.
So you said a few moments ago that, when Prospera started, it was a much different business landscape for Montana, maybe a moment of stagnation. Now we're in a different environment completely. I mean, growth is robust and exciting, and sort of, the COVID attraction of many newcomers to Montana is, we're still sort of experiencing the aftermath of that, or the continued long tail of that. How do you think about growth in this moment, where there's a lot of pressure on Montana and its infrastructure?
Probably one of the biggest challenges we have, not just in our area, but I'd say it's statewide, is really helping our communities plan for growth.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Montana has historically done very well, and not just plan for it, but also help finance it. So here's what I mean by that: is local communities often know what they need. They know what their list of problems are, or they know what their list of needs are. But as a state, we don't provide a lot of, I'll just say, good policy frameworks so that they can finance those solutions locally or in partnership with the state. And it's money, right? It's oftentimes it's like we need this or that, but we don't have a way to fund it, not just with cash, but with financing. So being able to sell bonds to fix roads or streets or water. And so the state hasn't really caught up with the fact that those tools need to be delivered at the local level to be effective. And I'd say I see that as a real challenge. We know what the problem is. We don't know how to fund it.
Right. I mean, how does your work plug in there? Like, what role do you play in kind of greasing those wheels?
Our role is probably pretty modest in that regard, but we have helped communities do some initial planning for things like master plans for site development, working with a rural community right now for like a community center. We've helped a local downtown do some master planning. So things like that. So we're not necessarily funding anything, but that's where I see what some of the roadblocks locally is. They want to do stuff, but they struggle sometimes with how to finance it. Montana doesn't have a lot of tools in the toolbox to do that. So my comment's probably more, as an observer, that would be helpful. And sometimes Prospera will get involved in just trying to be a strategic partner for local governments. We worked with the city of Bozeman years ago to help with their fiber optic deployment. So now that the city has fiber optics to every business and home in the city.
We'll be back to my conversation with Paul Reichert after this short break. A New Angle is proudly presented by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. This show does not happen without these pillars of our community, and I'm so grateful for their support and encouragement. And speaking of support, have you checked out our new website yet? anewanglepodcast.com. There you can support our show directly with a variety of subscription options. Subscribers get access to bonus episodes, additional segments, writings, and other benefits. So check it out at anewanglepodcast.com.
Hello, this is Jeff Ament from Deaf Charlie, and you're listening to Justin Angle's A New Angle.
Hey folks, on July 17th, A New Angle and Five Valleys Land Trust are teaming up to present This Didn't Happen by Accident, Stories of Intention on the Land. Join us for an evening of food, drinks, and discussion with a gorgeous view at the Line Ranch in Missoula. I'll be moderating a panel conversation with Donna Erickson, author of Rooted on the Edge, Bruce Bugbee, co-author of Saving the Big Sky, Greg Tollefson, co-author of A Gracious Civic Enterprise, and Whitney Schwab, Executive Director of Five Valleys Land Trust. This is going to be a great event, and I hope you can join us. Space is limited, so head over to fvlt.org for more information. Welcome back to A New Angle. I'm speaking with Paul Reichert, CEO of Prospera, a nonprofit economic development organization focused on Southwest Montana. I would suppose, much like Missoula, where I am, a big constraint to growth and to businesses developing in Bozeman in your area is housing, access to housing, workforce housing. How does your organization think about housing?
Everyone knows it's a need. We have very few tools available to us to merely make an impact, and we're not in the housing development business per se. We recently secured a loan fund with Gallatin County so that we can lend to affordable housing projects in our area. So that's in our wheelhouse to manage local revolving loan funds. So we're doing what we can. And I think what's a real positive is like no one's really questioning the need for it, right? I think really every single person fully understands how that is sort of holding things back. The solutions are time consuming. There's not a quick fix. So there's a lot of folks working on it. Our role at Prospera is probably more in, we do have some financing available to help affordable housing projects. We certainly talk to our colleagues in that space that do it more as a day-to-day and trying to find solutions that they're long game solutions.
You mentioned a moment ago the growth in the tech sector, photonics, quantum, kind of what's happening in Bozeman. Your service area is diverse, however. You've got like this rapidly growing urban center in Bozeman and the technology sector within it, but also, Park County has got a whole nother set of businesses and types of communities as well. How do you balance the diversity of your service area?
So most of our services are here in Southwest Montana, Gallatin, Park County. We do have a program that is a statewide program. So we do provide services statewide for the Women's Business Center. Mm-hmm. We're doing a lot more rural outreach. So something we started probably a year ago is we bring our counseling and some of our networking meetings to the communities that we serve. Montanans really like doing business face-to-face. And I'm a huge believer in that. It's great to be nearby, but there's nothing like actually going and meeting someone where they are in the town they live in. So that's a big part of what we're doing is just trying to be present, be available, show that we're there, and that pays off. The other reality is oftentimes in smaller communities, success looks different than it does in a bigger community. So if we help one or two businesses in a small rural community really get stabilized or grow or take on something new, that has a huge impact in a small community. The other thing we're seeing, I'll just throw this out, is business transitions. I'd say that's a huge thing we've seen in the last few years is businesses have sold to new owners. And these are usually small sort of Main Street type businesses, but not always.
Are these family businesses where the younger generation is not necessarily as interested in continuing the business, or is this just a different type of turnover?
I'd say it's probably all the above.
Okay.
You got the demographics, right? Older business owners that have been ready to retire maybe for a while, and now someone new is in town and strikes up a deal to be like, yeah, I'll buy that from you. Mm-hmm. So it's not always generational. Like I think I'll call them sort of like mid-sized regional companies that look at Bozeman being like, oh, we can come and buy a competitor here and grow. And so we've seen that where I'll say businesses, I'll call them regional, say they're in the Northern Rockies and now they can buy a competitor out here and grow their market share. So we're seeing some of that kind of thing.
Let's talk about access to capital. What are the biggest challenges for the businesses that you're working with in terms of their access to capital, and what gaps do you fill?
Prospera manages a range of different loan funds. Most of our loans are folks that, for whatever reason, aren't quite bankable, or they're just not really a good fit for sort of traditional financing. And that can be for a lot of different reasons. So our loan funds are usually helping someone who is either new to business, or sometimes we will help a business sale transaction, or they just need capital to grow, or maybe they're going from leasing a space to buying a space. It's a lot of different things. So our financing is trying to help people that are in business and aren't quite a good fit for a bank. And that can be for their ability to put equity down or cash down for the loan. It can be a challenge around collateral. That's pretty common. And so we work with folks that are kind of are the business is a good business, but have challenges getting access to capital. Typical loans for us are in the $100,000 to $300,000, $400,000 loans.
Okay.
So really big operations, generally we're not doing those kinds of loans.
Explain for the listener how you are able to provide that type of financing where a bank or another mechanism might not be willing to work with a business.
Prospera it's a local revolving loan fund program. We've had it for probably close to 20 years. And so we manage a couple different pools of funding that are available to businesses. Some are local revolving loan funds that local governments have.
Okay.
They've had those funds for years, so we manage those funds on behalf of some local government partners. We also have some of our own loan funds that we've put together through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, matched with Montana Board of Investments. And so we've built up those funding programs, so we're able to relend that money. And most recently, the state of Montana has had some funding available that we've been able to utilize, that we relend to businesses. And so all the funds we have, so different kind of pots of money, they're lent to businesses in our area, by design. They revolve locally. Here, we generally are only lending to local businesses. When those loans are repaid, we relend it to more local businesses. And so it's a great system, and it's common in economic development organizations. What we've done a little differently recently is we've been able to use some of those loan funds for things like our emergency shelter here in Bozeman with HRDC. And we were able to lend so that they could complete that project. Or, as I mentioned, we have a affordable housing loan fund now that we're looking to deploy here in the next year or so. So we're using loan funds to not just help businesses, but actually help with some community needs too.
So you've been in this leadership role at Prospera 10 years now. The organization is currently celebrating its 40th year of existence. As you look forward, and if you had the power for a moment to wave a magic wand, and what are the things that you would put in place to sort of help Montana develop the future as Prospera sees it?
For Prospera, we have started a legacy fund at Prospera, and part of that will be to support our work in bolstering our efforts on the community development side.
Okay.
So that we can have more services within Prospera to help our local communities solve some of those community challenges, because the growth isn't slowing down. The pressure's there. Even if it's moderated at some point, the trends that have been going on for so long, I just see like we need to help our communities really grow and prosper in ways that are, protect the livability of our region, right? Everyone's here because they love it. And we got to find ways to grow that keeps our quality of life intact and yet can support businesses and the communities that we serve. So that's one area. The other would be maybe a little more higher level would be, and it's not something I'm working on, but I would really hope at some point in the not too distant future, the state would be open to really providing more tools for local governments to do community development. I feel like oftentimes when things have been tried in the past, there is at the state level sort of an anti-city policies that just don't want to really help communities that are growing, that are expanding, to help them really help themselves. And I see that as kind of a weakness that I wish wasn't there, because this is how the economy looks now. And I think if there were some tools that, and some of this could just be policy oriented, not even really funding, just policy oriented, that allows local governments to have some tools that so that they can solve their problems, that would be a really great thing to see in the future.
And lastly, Paul, how do you think about education? Our public schools, our university systems, are we doing the things we need to build the human capital we need in the state of Montana?
I'd say for like workforce development, which is another major topic, the ability to adapt and change how, not so much like what we're teaching, but exposing the education system, whether it's grade schools and even at the college level, to the change in how the workforce and the economy that's changing. And that's been a topic here around photonics and quantum, is getting what we sort of termed the literacy. And that is, quite honestly, just going into the school systems and making sure that both teachers and career counselors and students themselves, even families, understand how the economy is changing for that next generation of a kid that's, say, a middle schooler or high schooler, to even know like this is possible right here in our state. You can have a job that does this right here in our state, and it has changed so fast that those systems often, they struggle with adaptation. Sometimes you just have to talk about it for a while, and then people realize like, oh, that's what STEM education might help me with. Oh, there's actually a company here doing autonomous vehicle controls, and that's why STEM in middle school might be interesting to you. So like trying to tie together sort of reality around what kind of work might that, someone might say, I don't want to be a scientist, or I don't like math, but if they knew they could maybe be a drone operator and that job is right here, right now, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't know that those two things were connected, and now I'm interested in that. So it's getting people just to be more literate or more conscious of how the education system ties to careers and workforce, or maybe job paths for students that they might not have ever drawn those connections. Things used to change over a course of years in the past, where you could study something and then maybe over the course of years that would evolve. Now it's happening in months.
Yeah, institutions that don't have a history of changing rapidly are being forced to change rapidly. And it's something I think about a lot. Paul, this has been fantastic learning about your work, Prospera, and your thoughts on the changing Montana economy and its needs. If folks want to learn more about Prospera, where would you point them?
They can obviously go to our website, prosperamt.org. You can also send us any of your thoughts at info@prosperamt.org, and happy to respond via email.
Paul, thanks so much for sharing your time and wisdom with us. And look forward to checking in down the road.
Thank you so much for today, Justin. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to A New Angle. If you like what we do and want to support us directly, please consider a subscription at anewanglepodcast.com. A New Angle is recorded at Studio 49, a generous gift from UM alums Michelle and Lauren Hansen. Our presenting sponsors are First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Kelly Larson is our producer. Maddie Jordan is our production assistant. VTO, Jeff Ament, and John Wicks made our music, and Jeff Meese is our master of all things sound. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.